Welcome to the Tortoise and Hare Financial Podcast. In today's episode, your hosts, Lao and Ryan Genoe, are diving deep into the concept of financial independence, what it means, why it's crucial, and how you can attain it. Whether you're a financial newbie or a seasoned investor, this episode will provide valuable insights into securing your financial future.
Why is it me? Why am I that guy? I still buy low, still sell high.
Well, Ryan, I guess it's time to welcome everybody to the Tortoise and Hare Financial Podcast. For all the new people, I'm Lao, your host, and for you new people, my co-host Ryan Genoe is joining me. Ryan, how are things going today?
It's an amazing day, beautiful outside, and excited again to talk about another topic that often comes up with a lot of people of how they can move themselves forward and understanding how to become financial independent. So,
What does that even mean? I mean, I think that means different things for different people, right?
it does. There's many definitions of what it means for a lot of people, and I think we talked about this before too. With some people, is really understanding, understanding one, where is kind of the tipping point of the income that you've earned or earning, whether it's passive, and the output, and making sure that those are balanced, or if not, higher on the side for yourself, as far as the income that's in or the income that you've saved through investing, to make sure that you meet that financial independence that you seek. And everybody's answer is different.
Yeah.
And we go through this with people often, right? So
Yeah, and I think we're going to talk about it more in the context of retirement and retirement planning. But yeah, it does mean different things for different people. I was just thinking about this as I was kind of preparing for the podcast today, and it brought me back to when I was about 16, 17 years old. And I remember having a conversation with my Uncle Dave at the time, and I was saying, I just wish I had more money. I need more money. I got to figure out a way to get more of it. And he's like, why? I'm like, oh, because my life would be so much better if I had more of it. And he said, really? Do you really think it would be that much better? I'm like, absolutely. He goes, okay, so what's the first thing you would do? Probably get myself a nicer car. Okay, what else would you do? Probably go out and get myself nicer clothes. All right, and what else would you do? I don't know, probably go on vacations or whatever else. He goes, so really what the more money is going to do for you is provide you maybe with some nicer things, but at the end of the day, from a financial point of view, you're not going to be any further ahead than you were today. You're just buying more expensive stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember at the time I didn't quite grasp what he was trying to say. Now, seasoned veteran and, gone through with lots of experience with money and stuff and life.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, he's so right. And that kind of leads to, individuals who win lotteries.
Absolutely.
And what is it? I think it's like 80% of them after 5 years of winning a lottery are worse off financially than they were before winning the lottery, right?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years, they're worse off than before they were before. So
yeah, so and even some athletes, football players or basketball players who've only had a short career, being thrown all kinds of money, and a lot of them go bankrupt after a few years. So financial independence, I don't really think is necessarily about money and having a lot of it. I think it's more about what you do with it, how you manage it. I think there's a spending component, there's an investing component, right? And just kind of finally, in terms of retirement and talking about financial independence, retirement for me, when I speak with a client, isn't about an age or a dollar value necessarily, or even an income stream, even though that's the planning that we do so people can kind of see it. Really, financial independence and retirement is you're working, and you finally one day say, I've had enough. I just can't do this anymore. I don't want to get up early, and I don't want to have to commute if you're a commuter. And having the confidence knowing that if you decide to shut it down, you have that independence, financial independence, to be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
Right. That's really what retirement is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, lots of great points, and I concur with pretty much everything. And I always like to create dialogue where we disagree too. So, which is another idea for a podcast: two separating views, right?
I think
So,
that'll be actually probably a harder one to come up with,
yeah,
based on your personality, my personality, and how we share a lot of values when it comes to clients and planning and all those things. But
yeah,
we'll see if we can come up with something.
yeah. I think along the way, and we'll dive into it. Is just truly finding out and understanding what's most important to you,
Mm-hmm.
and for you and your family and your significant other, and how that plays into helping you get to retirement that much earlier.
Yeah.
Again, I know you spoke about sports athletes too. I know plenty that have that same story of overspending. A great story of somebody to look into is, Shaquille O'Neal, somebody
Right.
who finally understood about what wealth was, and how to become independent and having different avenues of income streams, and really for him to giving back to
Mm-hmm.
his the community and whatnot. So
Mm-hmm.
there's lots of great stories of people that want to be able to share of how they become more financially independent besides just a number, right? So
Yeah. So I'll read. So this idea came from another article that we sent out a while ago to our clients who are signed up to our e-newsletter. So if you're not, visit tvhfinancial.ca. You'll be able to find a section there on the main page where you can sign up for our newsletter. So I'd encourage you to do that. So this article comes from one of those e-newsletters, and the paragraph I'm going to read here is defining financial independence according to a financial advisor in the U.S. So you will know if you are financially independent if you have eliminated your debt, have a financial reserve that can sustain you for an extended period, and have reduced stress levels when managing your finances. And that's according to Annette Harris, owner of Harris Financial Coaching in Jacksonville, Florida. Financial independence is achieved if you are not dependent upon your employer, income from your business, or financial assistance from an outside source. So I want to talk about the debt part first.
well,
Because I know when we talk about financial independence, a big part of it is, some people have now, what is it, the mortgage burning party or whatever, where they
yep,
burn their mortgage. In a lot of cases, paying off your mortgage in retirement isn't necessarily necessary. And it doesn't necessarily provide financial independence if you have the income to support the mortgage payment,
yeah,
right? So we can look at two people. You can have person A who decides that they work really hard to pay off that mortgage, and they reach retirement. They have no mortgage debt whatsoever, no mortgage payment to make,
hmm,
but they didn't set anything aside to draw from to live off of.
yep,
So not having that mortgage payment or mortgage debt hasn't necessarily put that person in a better financial spot, because now they don't really have another source of income to live off of or draw from over retirement.
mm,
And part of it is because they've accelerated their pay downs and whatever else. So every dollar has gone into paying off that debt.
yeah,
Where you can have another person, a person B, for example, who may have a mortgage, may have a mortgage payment. Some of them might actually tap into the equity of their home if they need to, and people are doing that nowadays through reverse mortgages and things of that nature.
hmm,
And they have the income to not only support the mortgage payment if it's not a reverse mortgage, but they also have enough funds to live off of, and go on vacations with in retirement. So I don't think the mortgage debt payoff is necessarily paying it off is the right answer, or
mm,
not paying it off is the right answer. I think it's really dependent on the individual.
yeah,
But I do believe paying off significant credit card debt
yeah, higher
at
interest, yeah,
20-22%, yeah, I think that makes sense
yeah,
in terms of trying to have a lot of that paid off if, again, you don't have the income to support a lot of those payments. Because when you have credit card debt, that can definitely lead to causing some bigger financial problems,
yeah.
right? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, the same thing, which is the strategy of understanding everybody is different, and that mortgage, for instance, is different than having perhaps a debt for your credit card, because they're high interest. You're constantly trying to pay them down, and it can lead to people being in more debt. You know, having people out there that can have a debt that is generating an asset on the side, and potentially an income, then there's an opportunity there to look at, right? And then again, we talk about, kind of the spending habits of making sure that you're living comfortably, enjoying life, but understanding what's most important to you, instead of, as you said at the beginning, do you need the new fancy car, right? But I think the elimination of high interest debt is one of the things, especially as Canadians. I think we're one of the top, when it comes to countries in the G7. I think we're the highest debt ratio of any of the countries. And I just saw a stat, for instance, when it comes to spending. Out of a list of 40 countries, Canadians spend an average of $2,100 during Christmas time, holiday shopping.
Okay.
And we were the highest out of all these countries. And it was, I'll find the information and share, but it was very interesting to see how much pressure we put on ourselves to spend in certain ways. And it's part of our job is to make people just simply aware of what and where their money is going, and to help somebody there to support the journey that they're on. And if you have a goal of early retirement or buying a place, that you're working with the right people that are going to help you along that journey. So
yeah, and you make a good point about the awareness side. We're definitely not preachers of, do this and don't do that, and stop buying your lattes and all that. We just don't do that. What we prefer to do, because again, budgeting or budgets for financial planning have proven to fail 90% of the time, similar like diets, and we've talked about that in the past. Yeah. So really for us, it's more of an awareness.
Yeah.
Here's where your money is going, and visualize it, see the number, because most people don't really track it. They're not really aware of what their variable expenses are. They know what their fixed expenses are. If I ask a person, well, what's your mortgage payment? They can quickly tell me. If I ask a person, what's your utility bill on average per month? They can quickly tell me.
Yeah.
When I ask them, how much do you spend at a restaurant per month or eating? Exactly. That's the one where they have to guesstimate the number.
Yeah.
And they're always off. And normally they're on the low end, not on the higher end. And then when we put them through the process, then they actually see, geez, it's a lot more than I actually had thought. Yeah. And even if we identify something that's a little bit extravagant or whatever, we're not going to say to them, well, stop doing that.
Yeah.
I'd say most of the time people will look and realize maybe I need to make a change. Right?
And a lot of it has to do with working with us to understand what their true ultimate goal is, right? And when they put forth what their goal is and keep that forefront whenever they're making money decisions, the outcome ends up being a lot more on the positive side when they have somebody to help support kind of the checks and balances along the way and help them kind of think through it. So, and I will repeat this over and over. It's just the more aware people are of their own financial literacy, their own spending, the more they can work towards a financial independence for themselves and their loved ones. So,
So one way that people can develop or create some financial independence is kind of using some of the strategies in Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Yeah.
You've read the book, I believe, multiple times.
Yep.
I've listened to the book multiple times because I'm not much of a reader. I'm more of a listener.
Yeah.
But one of the things that he does encourage people or suggest people to do is have multiple streams of income. Don't just rely on one, for example,
Yep.
or two. So if it's a couple working and they both have jobs, that's helpful. But what if one of them loses their job? What if one of them becomes sick and they lose that source of income?
Yeah.
That could put a family in a difficult financial spot. So a couple of ways. One way that we've helped clients at TVH for many, many years is by helping them get into rental properties and having, a rental property or two or three, providing them, a certain income stream.
Yeah.
Now, what it won't necessarily do right off the bat is put you in a cash flow positive situation, but what it's done, and we're seeing the benefit now because of recent times with interest rate costs going up with mortgages, many people have built a lot of equity, having someone else basically, a renter pay down the mortgage debt for them.
Mm-hmm.
There has been some appreciation in the real estate property. Now we have people that are selling off the rental properties and they're walking away with a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
and taking that money and either paying off some of their revolving debt or reinvesting it into other investments that offer income streams.
Yep.
So real estate is one way where you can look at adding an income stream. So if people are looking for assistance with that, that's an area of expertise that we offer our clients with our partners, John and Sonia, on the mortgage and legal side. Another way is by opening up, what the youngins call today a side hustle, right? So having a side business, and that's another way that you can potentially add another source of income, which will help you to have that, independence, financial independence.
Yep.
And really a third way is investing in such a way where you are receiving income from your investment. So investing not only in real estate as one way, but investing in, investments, individual securities or investments that are paying some form of dividend or interest.
Paying, yep.
Right. So there are multiple ways of developing financial independence by creating multiple sources of income.
Yep.
Anything to add to that?
Again, going back to the rich dad, poor dad, it's that mentality of amassing assets that are generating income for you in different avenues. And it's really a very independent way of thinking. Again, it speaks about the poor dad who wants you to find a good, secure job with good benefits. And that's the way. And it's just, we want people to think with a different mindset and kind of open up different ways of thinking versus kind of the ways that we've been taught from a very young age, and the way media and certain institutions kind of push one way. This is the only way to retire, and that is it. And you're becoming kind of part of the, I guess, again, the term, the rat race from the book, but also just I think it's restricting you as to what your end goal can be, and how the outcome can be a lot more positive if you're listening to and trying different strategies. So there's a lot of stuff that I know we can talk to with individual clients based on their comfort level and their position and where they want to see themselves in the future. And that's why I'll say that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, we've talked about the income stream as one way of creating or having multiple income sources or income streams. Yeah. Another way is, and we can't stress this enough, and I think every single episode that we've recorded, we talk about this, have a plan. I mean, it's one thing to have an idea. It's another thing to have a goal that hasn't been documented or written down somewhere. Yep. But I think what you and I find is when people actually put a plan in place and they visualize it, there's a bit of an aha moment. They're like, okay, now I can see what I need to do, right? In order to achieve some of these goals. And that's one thing that I think we really stress people is to put together a plan, work with someone. If it's not us, find someone who will put a plan together for you,
Yeah.
have it recorded, have it documented. But not only, as we say, there's a lot of heavy lifting to get it all set up. What's as important, if not more important, is to continue on reviewing that plan and kind of seeing your progress.
Yeah.
Are we close to target? Are we off target? What do we need to do to make some adjustments? Is there a way that we can add another income source? Those are things that we can help our clients with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another point as well is in working and putting a plan in place, we can also identify a lot of financial leakage,
Yeah.
right? So things like taxes. Are you paying more in tax and not realizing it?
Yeah.
Right.
I thought everybody loves paying taxes, so that's why they continue with their current plan. So,
Yeah.
I want to give up, half my income in retirement back to the government. So if that's it, well then okay. So continue your plan. But if you want to not be part of the status quo, and find different ways to pursue financial independence, then talk to somebody that can help you understand different strategies to balance, the comfort level of an RSP mutual fund versus coming in and having a balance of, non-registered and other assets that pay income to you. And that in itself will help you move towards. And again, there's no set time limit. Obviously, the younger you start, the better. The better you will be later on. But not to push people into understanding that there's a certain date that they need to retire and a certain amount of income, but and that's part of the planning process, right? That we do our at minimum reviews every year to talk through, have their goals changed, right? Because you don't just set it and forget it, and that's often what people do. But I think a challenge that I have for a lot of people out there, our listeners, is sit down with yourself, your partner, or your family, and have a couple hours just to talk about where that year looks like and what some of the goals are, whether it's saving for a family vacation or upcoming expenses or wanting to retire early, and even the dialogue of what does the retirement, and even after retirement, what does your legacy look like, right? And how that can be planned out with the proper advisor. So
Yeah, and going back to tax leakage again, most people don't realize there's a lot of decisions that they make where they're paying tax and it's not necessary.
yeah,
Just a simple example for everyone who has their money in savings accounts right now, earning 5% or getting into GICs, locking in at 5 years at 5% per year. If you have that $100,000 in a GIC, for example, non-reg, and you're earning 5% per year, at the end of the year, you're paying tax on $5,000 of interest income that you've earned. And depending on your tax bracket, you can take off 2 of that 5% is going to taxes right off the bat.
yeah,
And for many people who, they typically don't take that 5,000 out, they just compound it. What that also means is you're compounding your tax, because the following year now you're paying income on the 105 plus the 5% on top of that, and it just keeps compounding and compounding. So there's different ways. Those are just small little tidbits, a little example of how you might have a tax leakage, and there's strategies to avoid that. Simple things like, do we put money into an RSP over a TFSA? Well, one is deferring a tax problem. The other one, is tax-free. So there are benefits to working with both. But these are just some small examples. Someone who becomes incorporated or owns a business, many expenses that they couldn't really claim as a deduction now become a business expense.
yeah,
So your cost is the same, but now there's some form of tax benefit. And that's something that you would talk, to an accountant about to make sure that you're claiming the right type of expenses. So there's a lot of different scenarios and different things that we could do to identify if there's a tax leakage and reduce that tax because, like you said, Ryan, and I know you were sarcastic about it, no one really likes to pay tax. We all have to pay tax, but do we have to pay more than our fair share? No, there are strategies that we can help. So there's the tax leakage is one of them. Another part again is financing costs. Some people might look at just focusing on the rate of return or the interest cost rate, but there's so many other aspects to that decision where we look at opportunity cost, and there's what's the loss there. So
Loss
I'm not going to get
opportunities,
into the weeds with these things right now today. That's something that, again, if you're interested in and you want to talk to us about it, reach out to us and we can kind of run through some concepts with you. But there are other ways that we can help reduce some of these costs, help to increase wealth, to help you achieve that financial independence. Because I've been doing this for 34 years, Ryan. I don't think I've ever had a client come to me and say, Jim, I've got too much. Show me how I can have less of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's, Jim, this is what we have to work with. How can we improve on that? How can we have more of it?
Yeah.
And another example, as I think about it now, is, let's not focus necessarily on just accumulating the wealth, but let's multiply the wealth.
Yeah.
And that's where, again, some of these other strategies come into play, where we can start multiplying and really start to increase a person's net worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, as far as increasing net wealth, it's really for me in working with kind of the 25 to 45 client, it's being able to talk to them about instant gratification and overcoming that. How do you teach that to your kids and your kids' kids or your grandkids, depending on the way it's worked? I know there's plenty of information out there about, instead of you taking your kid out for McDonald's, show them how to buy stock in McDonald's, right? And those small little movements can help create the purchases of assets versus liabilities. And in the end, again, going back to financial independence and what that definition is for you and your partner or your family. And I said again, whether you sit down with your family once a year or twice a year, to really personalize and understand what their own financial independence is based on their goals or values that are coming up. So, and again, you keep saying it's not just about accumulating the wealth, but also finding a little bit of purpose within that, and multiplying the streams in which we can gain little benefits and tax deferred opportunities. So,
yeah. Now, before we started recording, you had said you didn't want to be preachy. Now, I'm probably gonna be coming across as a little bit preachy here because you said the word instant gratification, and I don't know why that just triggers me sometimes. Because we all want it, but I think some have learned that slow and steady wins the race. But I find that some of the younger clients, and I'm going to sound like an old man, but some of the younger clients, and I think it's part of how they were raised, because of the technology, the cell phones, everything's very instant. We have an instant reaction, instant news, instant everything. But I think they believe that life works the same way. And, I remember when I first got married, my wife Carol and I, we bought a small little bungalow. It was a little 2-bedroom. It's what we could afford. And we eventually upgraded from there and then upgraded from there again. I find that the current generation, the younger generation, they don't want to take those steps. They want to get straight into that 4-bedroom, 2,500 square foot home right away. They don't want to go through the steps of kind of building up to it. And that takes them away from having that financial independence,
Yeah.
because they're starting off with $1 million mortgage and heavy payments and whatever else, and not really focusing on anything else for their future. And they're relying on that one single asset.
Yeah.
So that's part of the issue. And the other one too is, I don't know about your first car. I mean, my first car, I owned a Vet. You know, it was a Chevette, and it was given to me by my uncle who was about to scrap it.
Yeah.
But that's what I was able to afford, and eventually build from there and build from there and build from there.
Yeah.
Where again, I think the younger generation, because they're used to that instant gratification, they're not willing to start with an old beater in many cases. They
Yeah.
want the new vehicle, and they're already getting into a $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 vehicle with
Yeah.
more, loan payments and lease payments and all those things.
Yeah.
And that can derail a person's financial future as well, right? And that's
And
coming from a car guy. I mean, I'm a car
Yeah.
guy. I love cars.
Yeah.
And
But
take it for what it's worth.
the impact when you show somebody the numbers, especially younger people that I've been working with, is when you show the longer term impact that can have. And so I had a Chevrolet, we called it an Extenda Porsche. It was a wagon.
Okay.
We called it the Extenda Porsche
Nice.
for fun. But yeah, and again, it was a handy me down, and everybody drove it. So, but again, for people to be able to make the right choices for themselves, if they want financial independence, setting that realistic goal for themselves, and how I guess the how is often, pay. I use the pay yourself first as one of the first things that I ever learned. Was instead of allowing a money sit in your bank and seeing that amount grow, and especially as a young person, $5,000 can feel like $1,000,000 to us, and removing that money immediately away, and knowing that that was going away to an investment. Young, it was non-registered, didn't need registered, taking advantage of not worrying about, I didn't have anything to worry about as far as taxes when I was young, right? So,
Yeah.
but accumulating over time, and again, applying the rule of 72 and compound interest, again, terms that we encourage people to go and learn about, is how you can create a more extravagant life later on in life, and just live a little bit simply when you're younger, and not have to worry about, comparing yourself to, your friends or whatever. Because I don't remember any of the shoes or the cars of what any of my friends drove when we were in high school, university, right? So we're worried about
See,
showing off.
I do, because my
Okay.
friends at the time wore Reeboks,
Yeah.
and I was wearing Reeboks from Bargain Heralds.
Not
They
not
both-
not byway.
We shopped at Byway as well, but the Reeboks came specifically from Bargain Heralds, and they looked exactly like the Reeboks.
Yeah.
The difference is theirs were like over $100, and mine wasn't, and I didn't feel as cool because they were Reeboks.
$9 bin. At least back then it was probably $3 bin. So
Yeah, but I mean, another part where I do feel for the younger generation now when it comes to the whole instant gratification side of things, and I would say probably the people that are in their 30s right now who started in the real estate market or got into the real estate market 5, 6, 7 years ago, because for them, their life as a real estate owner has been interest rates under 3,
yeah.
and growth, real estate investment growth, compounding at 5, 7, 8% per year.
Yeah.
And many of them, I believe, in talking to them as clients now, thought that was the norm and that was always going to be the case. And now we've hit a bit of we hit a wall right now where interest rates are not in the low 3. So they're struggling. Where someone who was in the market, in the early 80s, for example, your parents, my parents, they've been through this before. It was actually worse back then than it is now. So they always knew
21%?
that, hey, 21, 22%, yeah.
Yeah.
So they knew that it could happen again,
Yeah.
but the younger clients, they just never would have anticipated that, or they got into Bitcoin and all of a sudden they've doubled, tripled, quadrupled their money, thinking that that would always happen, it will always go up, But what's Newton's law? What goes up must come down,
Yeah.
right? So I do feel sorry for many of them who in their 20s and 30s, early 30s, got into some of these, again, real estate or some of these investments because they always believed it was just going to continue on growing and growing, and that was never going to end. And now reality has set in for many people, and hopefully that means it's tuition for them, meaning that they've learned from it moving forward.
That's
right?
exactly what I was thinking, which is, you can get a great split of people, some that will become fearful and it will now become ingrained in them and it will become a habit and a behavior. And then there's others that, as somebody who has an 8-year-old at home, that want to encourage that every failure is an opportunity to learn from, and that you continue to educate yourself. You learn that things come in cycles, things go up and things go down, and that as long as you're learning from that experience and you're educating yourself more and surrounding yourself with great people that will help support that goal, then that's a recipe for success. So
Yeah.
baked at 350. So
There you go. Awesome. So you know what? How about maybe kind of the final point that we'll talk about is ultimately what is the benefit of having financial independence?
well, again, for every individual, it's different, but having that conversation with an advisor, a coach, friends and family that are close to you, the benefit is that you reach your goals sooner. You have the independence of making those decisions yourself and not relying on the government. You're not relying on a company for a paycheck. And that you're able to do some of those passionate things that you've always wanted to do and be able to give back. And it obviously really starts with creating a plan and having something that tangible that you can look at and see that what your progression is happening through year over year, right? So at minimum, I challenge people to sit down and look at their plan, even if it's once a year, you're ahead of the game, right? So if you can tie in somebody that is an expert, that multiplies your ability to be educated and at the same time make decisions and take a lot of that stress off too.
Yeah.
A lot of clients faced before meeting a person like yourself or me along the way. So
Yeah, I think some other benefits, you talked about less reliance on the government, also less, lower funding of the government, by, again, finding ways to keep more of your money and giving it less to the government. So I think that's definitely one big benefit. Another one that I can definitely say without doubt, and this is based on some experience that we've been dealing with recently, is being able to sleep again at night. I didn't watch the full article. There was a YouTube video. There was a young person. They identified her as a millennial, but she was crying. She was in tears because she just doesn't know how she's going to keep up with the living expenses.
yeah,
And I think that is just one small example of how many people are feeling today.
yeah,
Many people are scared. I just heard today in the news that there are more people. I think 15% of credit card holders now are not making their payments. They're not able to make their payments, and it's because they're choosing to make their mortgage payment, and they don't have enough to pay their credit card payments. Many people have increased their credit card balances and basically borrowing from their credit card to pay their mortgage, to pay for groceries, to pay for a lot of the things that they need to live. So having some of that financial independence will take away some of that stress, because financial stress is huge. It can make people really sick.
yeah. And all those things I just talked about is is something that can relieve a lot of stress by being able to sit down with somebody and talk about those stresses and the things that you're facing and how we can actually support and help and get you on a plan towards not feeling as many of those stresses that you do feel from day to day. And yeah, I've met clients that are in the same boat as that. What is it? Canadians are $200 away from bankruptcy I think it was $200 away from bankruptcy or something like that.
Yeah.
Because of between mortgage payments and grocery bills and things adding up. So create a well-defined plan and work with somebody that can help support you and, understand what your cash flow is and understand just being aware of where your spending is.
And I think we have to be careful too, because I don't want people to think that there's a magic pill, and as long as they put a plan in place, that it's going to fix all their problems.
This is not the Matrix.
No, I mean, there are going to be situations that we've come across where it's just simply you've got too much spend and not enough money coming in, and there are some hard decisions that have to be made. So I don't think I want people to just think automatically, well, if they call us, that there's a fix for everybody and they're going to be, not dealing with any stress anymore and everything's going to be rosy. That's not the reality. Really what we're saying is we can help coach you. We can identify to see if there are any areas that we can assist you with. Yeah. But there are cases where we just can't. We just simply can't.
Yeah.
But the starting point is reach out to us. Let's see if we can help you.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
Yeah.
So, alrighty. Well, I think we're reaching end of episode time.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to kind of add, Ryan, as we summarize and close off for the rest of the summer that's coming to an end, sadly?
Yeah, I know 3 weeks left and the kids will be going back to school. Again, just like school, everything is about education and educating yourself. Yes. And we're here to help and support and guide people on this crazy journey, and especially when it comes to financial planning. So,
yeah, good. And I guess what I would say is, if you need help, if you're looking for some guidance, if you're looking for some financial advice, feel free to reach out to us. If if you have someone else that you trust, fair enough. But if not, and you'd like even a second opinion, we can be reached at financial@tvhgroup.ca. You can call us at 647-727-4668. And obviously we have our website, tvhfinancial.ca. We also have a mobile app that you can search in your app store, TVH Financial. And finally, if you're viewing this, you can listen to our podcast, the Tortoise and Hare Financial Podcast. Or if you are listening to this and you want to view us, you can do so on YouTube. And we also have all kinds of social media outlets and platforms and everything else. So I'd like to thank everyone for listening and watching. I encourage you to reach out to us. And also I encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter. Ryan, until next time.
Have a wonderful summer.
Thanks. You too.
Why is it